Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for that warm welcome, Dr. Garnon. I really appreciate it. And thank you so much for all of you coming and listening to my talk. I hope it's going to be a conversation as opposed to a presentation. So first and foremost, you may have seen Professor Happiness in this time slot. I want to confirm I am not Professor Happiness. I am Candice Booysen. And I feel truly honored and humbled to be invited to this platform, and I want to thank the Congress for this privilege. Well, my conversation today with you is about millennials. What led me into this journey, I'll be sharing with you my findings of my PhD study. I promise you, I'm not going to bore you with academia, but I just want to gauge into this room. Who is involved in academics? No one. Oh, we've got some academia. Okay, fantastic. There may be some questions you want to ask me about the methodology and all of those good things. Happy to share with you. Actually would love to share with you because I've used a mixed method study. But for the rest of us, we are curious about this phenomenon called millennials. What led me to this? I joined an organization as an HR director, and being an academic as well as a professional as an industrial psychologist, the one thing that kept coming up is, Candice, how do we retain young people? And I had to say to my CEO and executive team, well, I'm a millennial. I am within that cohort. And I decided, let me take on a 5-year journey in trying to understand in the IT industry, how do we do this actually? So I'm going to give you some backing of science and not just the articles that we see. Sometimes we as business leaders, we are we want to know and get to the bottom of this thing. But a lot of the suggestions and the ideas shared with us are not always scientifically proven, right? So there's an interesting concept which I hope I can share with you today that will make you leave this room with a little bit of a better understanding about this phenomenon called retention. So I'm in a room, and I was asked, when I came in, I was asked, this is the happiness room. And I'm like, okay. So if I want to make sure you live happy, one of the things is, if people are going to stay with your organization, they need to be happy, right? So this gentleman, Simon Sinek, is no stranger to most of us. Anybody who has never heard of Simon Sinek? Anyone? No. All of us have heard about him. And he's of the opinion, happy employees ensure happy customers, and happy customers ensures happy shareholders. But a lot of organizations, they start from the bottom. They say, let's keep the shareholders happy. Is that foreign concept? Most of our business decisions is driven to look at how can we keep our shareholders happy. But we actually need to look at our employees. A gentleman I really admire and respect is Lincoln Marley. He's a South African, and he says, to lead millennials effectively, you need to lead from the front with a flag and not from the back with the whip. And so we all know in this room that we have currently 4 different cohorts of generations in the workplace. But it is known that today, 2020, that 50% of our workforce is made out of millennials, Gen Ys. I'm not going to talk about the Centennials, which is Gen Z, but I must tell you, they're coming quickly, and our conversations would have to change very rapidly. So a quick overview, I'm going to set the context of my study, and I have the privilege of having the previous HR director in the room who has allowed me to conduct the study in her organization. It's the first time she'll be listening to this presentation, so welcome to you. So I'm going to briefly go over the methodology used, the results of the research, but the emphasis of my talk today is really about the practical implications for us as leaders. Any recruiters in the room? Yes? Any talent managers in the room? Yes? Any HR professionals in the room? Yes? I would hope so. Any business leaders in the room? Yes. So I think this concept of retaining millennials, it's so huge that if we think about it, half of them would leave. If half of your work staff would leave tomorrow, what happens? Half of them leave. Anybody? Your operation would stop. I see some signs, Candice. It's dead. Yeah. So my question, and this is specifically in South Africa, but I think there's some key learnings you could possibly take from it. And for the academics in the room, there are major gaps in this conversation, and I'd love to maybe offer you some insight in where those gaps are, if you are interested. So, a massive skill shortage in South Africa pertaining to the IT industry. In fact, we have a lot of great talent coming from India that we bring into South Africa to help us with the skill shortage. You know the high cost of the turnover, productivity interruption is no secret, as well as the intellectual property that leaves the organization as a result of turnover. In my study, I came across a concept called job embeddedness. Job embeddedness. The conversation that we have about why people are leaving, I'm of the opinion we should shift the conversation to why people are staying. If we are still conducting exit interviews in our organization, we are most likely to be reactive because we're constantly trying to catch up with insight that we haven't dealt with. Whereas if we were to start having stay conversations in understanding why are people actually staying with us and creating more of that happiness, we might have a better chance at this war called talent war, as we refer to it. Make sense? Yeah? So job embeddedness has got 3 elements. And again, I'm not going to bore you. 3 elements is organizational links. So on the job embeddedness has got organizational links. How well are the person linked into the organization? Organizational fit. How many of us, when we do an interview, do we ask young people about their values? It's an expensive oversight when we do not ask young people about what do you value and having a conversation with them about alignment of their values with the organizational value. A lot of recruiters, they have the targets, they have to fill the gaps, and they have to do it now. You will also agree with me that when you sit with millennials, you are no longer interviewing them, but they are interviewing you. Correct? You're not interviewing them. They want to know what is the difference that you're making in the workplace. All right? So on the job embeddedness is organizational links, organizational fit. And here's the one other thing. It's the perceived sacrifice if they were to leave you. The organizational perceived sacrifice. So there is 2 aspects. I only studied on the job embeddedness. There is a gap for those scholars amongst us to actually study off the job embeddedness. Because there is another part of the conversation that we do not have. And that is coming to terms with there are times that you're simply not going to be able to retain someone. Why? Because they, in the community that they are in, they are no longer linking, they're no longer fitting, and they feel that they won't sacrifice anything if they leave the community. Make sense? So there is the concept of off-the-job embeddedness. In our models and in our conversations, we only look at what can we do as organizations to prevent people from leaving. Yeah? But there is another reality. There are times a person wants to get married, for example, and the partner lives in another country or the partner lives in another city. If your organization is not global, what can you do to retain the person? The question I had, the research question was, which organizational and individual variables serves as antecedents to intention to quit, serves as that. And then from a job embeddedness perspective, what is it? What is this thing called job embeddedness, Candice? It's simply put, it's the web that creates the link, the motivation for someone to stay in the organization depending on the strength of the number of links that they have in the organization and in the community. It's important to understand your young talent, what they are connected to. Yeah? If your young talent, if there is somebody who enjoys doing cricket, you know, or soccer, some of organizations actually have soccer teams and soccer clubs. It's no longer enough to only do organizational related things. In an earlier presentation, I learned another presenter, she said that previous generations, they work to live. But millennials, the previous generations live to work. And for millennials, we actually, we do the opposite. We want to have fun, and then we want to work. So how do we as professionals create that? You know, in Google, they have these, the game areas. And that is also an important component, is creating experiences for millennials. Yeah? This is not a test or an eye test, but I just wanted to show you, in terms of the literature review, there's a big gap that after I've done the qualitative part of my study, I saw that literature actually doesn't talk much about pay. And then I want to say to you that the way in which we structure pay in South Africa, for example, is that we said medical aid, we can't bring our parents onto medical aid. However, a lot of millennials only start families later in their years. And as a result of that, they actually have to still look after their aging parents. And from a benefits perspective, that no longer serves us. So as remuneration specialists, we had to start looking at what is considered good pay and what is considered remuneration and repackaging that. So for the scholars in the room, you might ask me, Candice, how did you go about this study? It's what I called mixed method study. And basically, I had 3 phases to it. I did a qualitative part of the study, followed by, which was questionnaires and interviews. And the questionnaire was developed by a literature overview. And after that, I had focus groups, which then informed the final model. And then I did a bit of a questionnaire. Now, I can't share all of that right now, but I'm happy to share it with interested parties afterwards. So this is really the part that I want to focus on, essentially. The concept of job embeddedness is what made you stay with the organization up to this point. And some of my insight is no big news to you, is the big thing: advancement, growth, opportunity, organizational support, social support, as well as organizational, the employee commitment. If I feel my colleagues are committed, I feel a sense of belonging, yeah? In terms of the intention to quit, is there anything that would make you leave? Organizational culture, and we have said this time and time again, culture eats what for breakfast? Strategy for breakfast. We can't leave culture to chance. We in this room, we need to be the engineers behind the scenes making the culture happen, as opposed to leaving it up to chance. Yeah? I'm also of the opinion that maybe the smallest step we can take in this transition journey is to focus on the organizational climate that you create, as opposed to the full-on culture. Because you and I know culture takes years, up to 10 years to shift. Whereas a climate, you can actually make that change within a year or 2. Yeah? So that's the small little win you can do. Describe the type of leadership that you prefer, and how does this influence your work? And what comes up time and time again is transformational leadership. And one element of transformational leadership is being with competent managers. So So people want to work, millennials want to work with people that they can learn from. In a previous session, again, we said coaching for millennials is the new way of training. Yeah? How would you describe the culture? So social support, organizational fit. What would you like most about the organization's culture is managerial competence. There is a responsibility on us as HR professionals to work with our leaders in terms of competency. If young people don't feel that they can learn, that's one of the reasons they would leave. And you know that so many times talent don't leave organizations, they leave people. Talent leaves leaders or managers, they don't necessarily leave the people. I'm so happy to see some nods in the room because you know this. What do you like least? So lack of support, lack of managerial competence. Which aspects of your job makes it easier for you to perform optimally is cooperation, coordination. Which aspects of your job makes it difficult for you to perform? The lack of organizational support. Yeah? I'm happy to share this with you. So in today's society, I find this quite intriguing. It happens in organizations as well. Oh, if people leave the organization, it's not our problem, it's HR's problem. Anybody familiar with that? If people leave the organization, it's someone else's problem. But we are all in this boat. And we can no longer defer this problem. It's all of our concerns. Yeah? So when I've completed the qualitative part of my study, what was interesting is all the aspects in literature was there. However, the satisfaction with pay in literature was omitted. Yet in practice, we know that that is something, but in literature it didn't feature. And again, it showed me that there's a major gap between academics and what we actually observe and see in the world, and we need to bring that closer together. Yeah? So what are the implications that we are facing? That there's an opportunity to increase the employee value proposition through the repackaging of what is considered benefits. So when we look at, people ask you, what is the benefits? Okay, you get so many days of pay, of leave, you get, this is your salary, cost to company, you get a bonus, you get retention bonus, but there's other aspects in your organization that's not necessarily monetary. And so that is flexible working hours. How many of us consider to put that as part of your recruitment benefits? Yeah? Or even when you come into this organization, you will get a mentor. That's very attractive for a millennial. When millennials come into the organization, they are in the driving seat of their career. Chances are, if you were to present them with an individual development plan in the recruitment session, you'd get a very different result and outcome. Yeah? Also, I said this early on, the creation of the web that leads to Generation Y job embeddedness is stay conversations. Please, if we're still doing exit interviews, we're probably looking in the rearview mirror. Stay conversations create that connection, and you can actually get a lot. I'm happy to share the template that I have around stay conversations with you as well. Create more informal engagements. It's about the experience for your talent. Create more, how many of you have gaming in your organization? Like you have an area where there is actual games. Yes, 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 yes. Awesome. The experience and the connection created between individuals, that's what people remember. We often, in terms of our problem solving, we often have mental blocks. And we see people going, developers going, and they go and challenge somebody and playing a quick game, coming back into the room, and they're refreshed. You know, some people need to walk a little bit to get that aspect, but creating more informal connections is important to create happy employees. Who of you are familiar with retention bonuses? I was surprised at this one. I didn't anticipate this one to come up because people used to tell me, well, Candice, money doesn't make people happy. And as much as I agree, I also felt I had to disagree because meaning is more important. But what if I have meaning and I don't have resources? Yeah? And I guess why this came up is in the context of in South Africa, often we find it's first generation who has a home, who drives a car, and they have to bring little brother and sister. They've got to pay for the school fees as well, because we are still dealing with the aftermath of apartheid, unfortunately. And so this one, when retention bonuses come in, they think, oh, if that comes in, I'll stay because I can put my brother or my sister through, I can pay the university fees, for example, or I can actually put mom and dad on medical aid. Yeah? The other component is supportive organizational culture. Think tanks, doing group coaching. Those are all the kind of activities that we can create to give that sense of support. Yeah? Mentorship. Who of you have mentorship program in your organization? Yeah. Oops. I think that's not mentorship happening there. Thank you for those hands. I think mentorship is key and it will continue to be. Again, one thing that I've learned in this conference also is that younger people are now getting ready to be coaches. And gone are the days where we think that you've got to be above a certain age in order to be a coach. So don't be surprised if your top talent in your organization comes knocking at your door and say, ma'am, sir, I'd like to become a coach. Can you please help me or fund my program? Don't be surprised. Because the self-belief of I want to help and I want to give back is so deep. When we talk about millennials and we say it's the me-I.com generation, I'm the first person to say, actually, we feel misunderstood as millennials sometimes. I am a millennial, and besides working, taking care of family, I have an NPO that has been self-funded for many years. So it's not me.com. Please remove that tag from the millennials. They actually care. They are aware of the environment. They're now making commercial decisions or consumer decisions where they're not going to buy a product that is harmful, but they want to know what is the impact of that product. So so one of the other things you can retain is find out from them what are they passionate about, and create an opportunity. We know on a Friday afternoon, like productivity windows, use that window period to say, here's 4 hours to go out and make a difference. Here's 4 hours, you can decide what you want to do with that time, which is out of the box thinking. But one organization, a bank in South Africa, did that with one young lady. And the shift that had taken place, she started a maths tutoring club. She felt the perceived sacrifice. If she had to leave that bank, she would never have the opportunity to give outlet. So that took the job embeddedness, the perceived sacrifice. She didn't want to leave because no one else will give her that opportunity and privilege to serve and make a difference. Yeah? So consider offering transformational leadership training. I do not have the time to break that down, but am I still okay for time? I'm wrapping up. 2 minutes, good. So I want to end off by saying, train people well enough, and this is by Richard Branson, train people well enough so that they can leave, but treat them well enough so that they don't want to. And that's the end of my presentation. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it.